think she might be back in today for, Christie may be
What?
in. Christie's in, you think?
She said, Caitlin said she will be in for this.
Okay,
So that's why I want to do it early, because it might be a few minutes.
okay, gotcha.
She knows it has to go over there before noon.
All right.
Are you ready, Jane? And Rachel, are you carrying it or is Bill?
I was slated to
19?
carry it, but Bill can carry it if you'd like me.
Oh, no, I just heard you ask him, so I didn't know if you guys changed.
Oh, I didn't know if there was a switch, so I was on the agenda too, but we
I'll-
can switch it.
No, I'll give it to you. Okay. Okay, ready in front, ready in back? All right. Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, July 31st, 2024, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us online by going to our website. Live stream is also available at tctvonline.com. Click on Live Broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to the public comments email on our website. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone signed up in the room, or has anyone registered online for public comment? No, neither. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, welcome everyone. We'll invite everyone to sign the guest list, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Olson, will you lead us, please?
I certainly will.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have some changes to our agenda order this morning, and also agenda items 9, 10, and 15 have all been postponed. Agenda item 19 will be taken out of order. It will be taken first, and then we'll have 2 unscheduled items followed by our presentation. So we're going to jump right in with agenda item 19, which is consideration of an order in the matter of calling a measure election to submit to the electors of the county the question of authorizing up to $24,400,000 of general obligation bonds and related matters. Rachel Haggerty, Chief of Staff, is going to take this item for us.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
This has been a long time coming, and I'm very pleased to be here to share this board order for your consideration this morning. The county staff have been working for at least 5 years with all of our first responders to go through a process to upgrade the public safety communication system that they all depend on to serve our public and residents and visitors. The current system is over 20 years old, and it's well beyond the end of life. It has limited infrastructure and technology, which is strained by service call increases. It lacks reliable countywide communication. It delivers inconsistent communication between first responder agencies and neighboring public safety agencies. It has been maintained to the best possible, it has been maintained as best as possible, but is so out of date that many of the replacement parts can only be found on eBay and Craigslist. And the cost of deferred upgrades increases the longer that we delay implementation of this upgrade. In working with our partners, we have completed a system assessment and needs analysis, and we've developed a preferred concept that is not fully designed yet, but it is concept for a new an upgraded system. The upgraded system will deliver an estimated 95% coverage for public safety users throughout the county, which is far above the level of coverage that the existing system delivers. It will improve communication across all public safety agencies. It will reduce response times by allowing for the simultaneous transmission of information to first responders. It will have modern technology features, and it will strengthen our emergency preparedness efforts by improving connection with our neighboring counties, state, and federal partners. The cost of the engineering and construction is $26,400,000, and that includes a 20% contingency. Thus far, staff has secured a $2 million federal appropriation, but we do continue to seek grant funding. But given the urgency and lack of alternative funding options at this time, the board has expressed support for submitting to the voters a general obligation bond to fund this upgrade. So before you today is consideration of the board order that will do just that, asking the voters to approve this general obligation bond in November. I don't know if you have anything to add on the order. Okay, so it's, so it's ready for your consideration.
Thank you very much. And it has to go to the clerk's office to be filed today to get on the November ballot, is that right?
That is incorrect. We do have some more time, but we are getting ahead of the deadline, so there are no issues with it getting on the ballot.
Okay, great.
So to make, to be ahead of timelines for it to go to the Headlight Herald, if we are doing that today, there is urgency this morning to complete it.
Great.
If that makes
Okay,
sense.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, this has been going on for quite some time, and since I've been a commissioner, I've been on this one, and it's something that absolutely is needed. It's one of those things that if you had a hierarchy of what do local governments do in America, public safety is at the top almost every time you look at it in any way, shape, or form. And we do have a radio system, and what I like to explain to people when we start talking about this is how many people have an iPhone in their pocket, and everyone does, or an equivalent. Our system was purchased and placed in service several years before the iPhone was even invented. And you need to think about that, because our system is mostly analog, and everything nowadays is digital. We have a variety of TV cameras, I guess you'd call them TV or monitors, in this room, and most people have a flat screen TV. Back when we purchased our radio system, you had a square box in your living room or your bedroom or wherever for your TV. And that's all changed. And the system, as was pointed out, has grown out of date, and that's a natural evolution. And some things have a really, really long life cycle of measured in decades. Electronics do not. Again, if you think about your personal electronics, what you had 5 or 10 or 15 years ago is likely out of date. And so that's why we're looking at this, and there are lots of stories that go along with it, and I won't go into those here today, but we do have a booth at the county fair next week, and if you're interested in this subject, you can come by. We'll have some publications, I think possibly a video that explains it further, and then certainly have some people who can answer questions. So this is a large amount of money. It's over $24 million, but I think it's important to remember the county has already received a $2 million grant towards this, so the people doing that judged that it was necessary and needed some help. And there's also a couple of other grants in process, but one cannot count on them because they may not materialize. So as was pointed out by the chair, the reason we took this out of order, there's a publishing requirement that there's about a week, I think, where people can question or object to this ballot measure, and so we'll follow the law on that and then turn in the appropriate paperwork to both the county clerk and then ultimately the Secretary of State will pass on some of the matters that go before voters. So we've engaged legal counsel, we've engaged others that need to be brought into the circle to get this sort of thing before the voters. And so it's been a complex process, but it's ready to roll forward, and the voters can make their decision as they always do in November. So I'm certainly prepared to support this, and I think it's something that would have been nice to have 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't know how to turn back the clock. So we do it today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I agree that this is essential. It's absolutely essential to the safety of our first responders and to the safety of our citizens. we've been talking about rolling this out and the communications campaign, and it's interesting to me to reflect on there's been discussion about whether or not we should use the word obsolete. Is the system actually literally obsolete? And in fact, it is. It meets the literal definition of obsolete because the replacement parts are not available. And so we can no longer fix it. We can't keep it up to a standard that is safe for first responders. It's not, and for the people, us, that they're serving. And so if you think about our county and all of the places where there's no cell service or the cell service is spotty, sometimes it's spotty in places where it shouldn't be. And, we're sending first responders of all kinds, police, ambulance, fire, et cetera, to every corner of the county to take care of us. And they can't always get the backup they need. They can't always communicate. We've heard stories from Eric Swanson, the president of Adventist Health Tillamook, that sometimes we're transporting someone in an ambulance and they need to be able to contact a doctor because the person is having a medical emergency and they can't contact anyone en route. So it's essential. And from my perspective, it's unconscionable for us to continue to ask first responders to do the work without being able to communicate effectively while they're in the field. So we absolutely do have to do something about this. I'm grateful to Rachel for her leadership in this project. She's been working on it, as she said, for 5 years. There's a lot of work that's gone into this project, including bringing together a whole coalition of all the users. So there's a lot of work, good work being done that has been done, but we're, as Doug said, we're responsible for public safety, and we're going to have to pay for this new system. So I'm fully in support.
Okay, thank you. The only thing I would add, Commissioner, is this involves a number of agencies, and I won't list them all, but it's not just Tillamook County. It's all the fire departments, and there are several. It's also the city police departments, the county sheriff. It's also Tillamook PUD. I think our public works people will have a part in that, and it's the ambulance service. So everything related to public safety and the first responders and then the 911 dispatch center is included in this. So it's not just the county itself or some other standalone agency, it's the entire county. And one other thing that we should mention too, this also will enhance the ability to communicate with other agencies in other counties, Lincoln County, Washington, Clatsop, and others, where now that's been a bit of an issue as well. So this will improve that. And again, it's one of those things that falls to local government, and so here we are. So I will offer a motion when you're ready.
Please do.
Madam Chair, in consideration of an order number 24-049, an order of the matter of calling for a measure election to submit to the electors of the county the question of authorizing up to $24,400,000 of general obligation bonds and related matters, I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, we're going to do something slightly unusual here in that Commissioner Olson and I are going to sign this, and then we're going to pass it off to Bill Sargent, County Counsel. Okay, thank you.
Okay, over to legal counsel, and it's in your good hands.
I'll take it next door to the clerk's office and see that it's timely filed.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on in our agenda, we'll take our two unscheduled items next. Unscheduled item number 1 is consideration of a letter of support to Future Ready Oregon for the establishment of an Oregon Coastal Apprenticeship Hub and Training Center. And with us, we have Jeremy Strober of Heartfelt Hospitality Management, LLC, online.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Thank you for letting me address the board today. I appreciate your time. Today, I'm bringing an opportunity to support an exciting project that I think could really enhance student learning and workforce development in our county in a significant way. The Tillamook Education Consortium is a partnership between our 3 school districts in the county and TBCC. The goal of this consortium, this partnership, is to provide a better education for our kids, which will in turn build stronger economies and communities. The goal is people and workforce development. The TEC, as the Tillamook Education Consortium is known, has been working to enhance career-connected learning opportunities for our students, connecting kids directly to industry in and around Tillamook County to provide exposure to and experience in different career fields at a younger age. Our plan with this partnership is to build what we're calling the Oregon Coastal Apprenticeship Hub and Training Center, a capstone industry experience center right here in Tillamook County. This center would create synergies for all of our students across the county and provide modern learning opportunities for all Tillamook County students. This site already exists at the former Beaver Middle School building. It has been donated to the county for this purpose, and feasibility studies have already been performed. This project is supported by all 3 school districts, by TBCC, and over 50 members of local industry that have already become involved. What we're asking for the Board of Commissioners today is simply a letter of support for a grant application that we are writing to make this apprenticeship hub and training center a reality. Your support for this project would mean a lot to the Grant Review Committee, but also to the people of Tillamook County if we're able to accomplish this plan. We appreciate your considering this letter of support, and are there any questions for me?
Thank you, Jeremy. Questions, Commissioner?
Thank you. Well, good morning, Jeremy. Nice to see you. I was hoping you'd be here in person so we could visit on different things, but I absolutely would support this. And what I could say about our 3 school districts, and Nestucca in particular, is I'm continually amazed at the amount of things they get done with such in a small district and with relatively few students and correspondingly not a lot of resources. I think Tillamook or Nestucca still has fewer than 600 students, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that Neahkani is too much larger, and then Tillamook would be somewhat bigger. But if you added the population of all 3 school districts together, they're about the same as some of the larger high schools in the region. And so we do a lot with relatively modest resources, and I've always been impressed with the cooperative agreement among the 3. I can think of several over the years where the districts have come together on one program or another, and that, to me, that makes a great deal of sense. And then the college, as was pointed out, will join in this one as well. So good for everybody, and I hope it works, and I hope you get the grant, and like to see it happen. So I think good things come out of this school district, and with the modest resources that they have, and this is another pretty good example.
Thank you. I
Thank
am
you, Deb.
also supportive. I'm excited about this project as the chair of Tillamook Bay Community College Board of Education. I have heard about this project. I have visited the site. I think it would be a great use of the former middle school in Beaver, and I just think that the opportunities for our students and for our businesses to train our students in trades, and then for those folks to be able to get good jobs with our businesses, the opportunities economically, socially, et cetera, they're just tremendous. And I think it's a really wonderful project, bringing together the 3 school districts and the community college. And I know that the Tillamook Education Consortium has already received 1 grant, but yeah, I'm sure that it isn't sufficient to remodel that facility. So I'm fully supportive of this work. I think it will be a benefit countywide, and just wonderful work. And I thank you, Jeremy, for your work on this project.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I appreciate that.
I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of a letter of support to Future Ready Oregon for the establishment of an Oregon Coastal Apprenticeship Hub and Training Center, I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jeremy. We will
Thank you
sign
for your
this.
time.
You're welcome. We'll sign this and email it to you this afternoon.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our second unscheduled item, which is consideration of a letter of support to the Foundation Grant Review Committee and trustees for the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology Sitka Youth Program. With us, we have Nicola Harrison, Assistant Director at Sitka Center for Art and Ecology. Nicola, will you come up, please? Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for the invitation to be here, Commissioners. We are here requesting a letter in support of future grants to support our youth program. I think we were here about 6 months presenting to you. Since then, I would like to report that we've added an additional 10 schools, I believe. So we will be now serving, to our surprise, 17 schools in 3 counties, Tillamook, Lincoln, and Clatsop County, including 9 school districts, all Title I schools. So we have grown from serving 2,000 to 5,000 students this upcoming fall. So we're here to ask for your request in searching for more funding for those programs. We also we've been waiting to name the program for these past 3 years to just get feedback from the people that we're serving. And we've decided to name it K8 Create.
Oh, that's a great name.
Yeah, we're excited about that. I think that's about it. Well, I also want to share, this is, as the former executive director of Community Arts Project, who was previously delivering these programs, as you know, Mary Faith. This is a dream come true for all of us. So, thank you.
Thank you. It is thrilling. It's truly thrilling. And I'm just so impressed. I'm proud and impressed in the way this program is growing. It was wonderful when it was small, and I always had the feeling like, wow, I wish all the kids in our county could have this opportunity. So now not only do all the kids in our county have this opportunity, but also our neighboring counties, which is extraordinary. So it's we did talk about this about 6 months ago, but I'll repeat myself a little bit just to say that when my son went to school at Nestucca Valley Elementary, he got to participate in the community arts program, which Sitka has taken over. And it was a wonderful experience. It was a wonderful arts experience. He got to learn about different styles of art and different classic artists and contemporary artists, and practice different kinds of art and different mediums. And I still have some of those things, and they're just fabulous. And it was such a rich arts education opportunity that he simply wouldn't have had otherwise. And so as his fellow students also would not have had that opportunity otherwise. And I think that is life-changing for students. And I myself recently got to, last year in the spring, got to visit the classroom where the Sitka Arts Youth Program was operating, and it was amazing. There was a visiting musician, a cellist was visiting. I think she was an artist in residence at Sitka, and she was playing for the kids, and they were telling her stories, and she was making up music on the spot to describe their stories, and then they were making art about the music, and it was dynamic. It's so good. So I think we're all just thrilled when our children have an extraordinary education experience, and that's what this is. And so how wonderful that more kids are going to have it now. So I'm delighted to sign this letter. Commissioner?
Well, thank you. Yes, I too think this is a good thing. And as I said in the earlier presentation, what we do in this community is really quite remarkable with the relatively limited amount of assets that we can use. And in this case, you've expanded beyond Tillamook County, and that's a good thing. So we'll hope to keep it going. And You know, some people say, well, art is like a third or fourth tier, we can push that off when there's financial difficulties, and I don't necessarily support that because it's part of a bigger part of education, meaning that you can learn how to read and write, but there's some other cultural things that come your way as well. And if we overlook that, I think that's a serious mistake. So what you're doing and are hoping to do is commendable simply because it broadens people's perspective on life in the world, I guess you could say. So I'm going to sign this letter here and pass it on and hope for the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to you both. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a letter of support to the Foundation Grant Review Committee and trustees for the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology Sitka Youth Program, Nicole Harrison, Assistant Director. That's you. Okay, so I'll move approval, and I should have stopped there. Sorry.
That's okay. I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you for your
being
time.
here. And we will sign this and send it to you this afternoon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, now we will move on to our regularly scheduled items, and starting with item 5, which is our annual tourism report for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. With us, we have Nan Devlin, Director of Telemacost Visitors Association. Good morning, Nan.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you. Nice to see
Before I
you.
get started, I'd really like to thank Jeremy Strober. I hope he's still online. You know, he's been involved in tourism since day one or pre and day one. And he's been working on these programs for a long time. We will be involved in it in the tourism and hospitality sector training. And Dan has been working with him through Career Connect classes where we introduce people to different kinds of aspects of tourism. And it also helps us because we can help fund some of those classes, especially in the culinary arts. And there's great demand for fish filleters, and they make good money. Back of the kitchen, you know, back house, front of the house. We'd like to see more outdoor recreation people start businesses here. So we're really excited about that. And I'm also thankful about the arts because a single performance can change a student's life and help you look outside, be creative, look outside the boundaries. And STEM studies are great, but the arts fulfill you and help you be more creative. So I'm really glad about that.
Thank you.
I'll start by saying, first of all, thank you for your support these last few years. You know, it was a kind of a struggle for us in the first 3 or 4 years. There was a lot of anti-tourism sentiment in many areas, and but we've been able to do what we would always intended to do, and I'm not even sure the commissioners at the time knew that by creating those grants in the very first year, right off the bat, as soon as you had a year's worth of TLT and you saw what you had, that you put it out in grants to the community. And I'm not even sure you knew that you were embarking on community-based tourism, which is like kind of the ideal. And that's what we have found, that people are coming to us now and saying, how did you do this? How do we do it? Can you help us? And we've even gotten requests from Ireland and Canada and across the countries, and of course here in Oregon. How are you doing this? And we've been sharing all of our information because we want more tourism organizations to do community-based sustainability or sustainable-based tourism. And we're glad to help. And you were just saying a little while ago that it's really amazing how much is done in this county, and tourism was done right. So I'm really glad for that. I'm glad to be here. Thank you. So this has been a very interesting year. We had brought on 2 new employees. It was Dan and me for a long time, and it's amazing that the two of us got what we did get done. And we brought on a new finance and grants manager, Marnie Johnston, who did wonders for our systems, on our accounting systems, our grant systems. And she left, of course, to go a few months ago in June, 1st of June. She left to go work for City of Rockaway Beach. And they were kind enough, they wanted her to come right away, and she stayed for two and a half months at halftime to train a new accountant for us, and he has been wonderful. And it's a contract, and it's worked out it's just really great. And she also got us started on a new grant software system. And that's going to make things so much easier. It's the same system that Travel Oregon, OPRD, Autzen Foundation, they all use this system, and it's intuitive. It's easier for even the users, the grant applicants to use. It's all in one system, and it's transparent, which we really like. And then we hired a strategic communications person, Nicole Steen, and she has put together communications plans for all of our initiatives. And we are starting with a couple of videos to explain what we do and what these initiatives mean. And we're already starting those kinds of communications through social media, through press releases, through blogs, everything that we can get that message out, which is what our board requested that we do over a year ago. And we have one more person to hire, and this is going to take a load off my shoulders because I'm doing HR, I'm doing operations, I'm doing helping with finance, I'm doing banking, I'm doing all these things that I think someone who really likes to do that, we hope to hire and have admin help with that too. So I'm really excited to share with you what we've done this year. And the first part is just kind of an explanation in here about what we've done. But on page 6, our TLT investments kind of wraps up how we spent the money and in what areas. So this is a year-end pie chart, and a lot of it went into operations, which includes personnel. And we also upgraded some of our software. So it was a little bit more in operations this year, but we were needed to upgrade in a lot of different areas. In the 3 R's investments on the next page, relationships, these are the initiatives that are under what we call, this is for the people part, like sustainable tourism is people, place, profit. People is what are we doing for the community? Place is are we being stewards for the environment? And profit is how are we creating and investing in our industry so they have year-round economic vitality. So in the relationship, we did a lot of industry support and communications. We did community development, culinary agritourism, cultural heritage, and the arts. In responsibility, which is the stewardship part, we put in quite a bit. We did a lot of destination development, which was a lot of training with, like we did medical, emergency outdoor medical services, and we're doing 3 more of those this year. We did trails and outdoor rec and public safety, and we did quite a bit of that this year, more than before. And reinvestment was a lot like we had communications, which included our visitor guide, things like that. So it's, just shows how, and this will change every year, what investments we make. This year, the responsibility part, the stewardship part, we're putting more in because we're contracting with Tillamook, Trail Keepers of Oregon. We've got them under contract, and we're doing a Leave No Trace program. And we also did we'll be doing more volunteer adventures. The Oregonian is right now writing an article about our Volunteer Adventures program. And we've got 6 so far, 6 groups coming to do, clean up the beaches, work in the parks, do those things like that. And so that's fun. That's been a great program for us. Other things we've done, this is the 7th year. We're about to start the 8th year in the North Coast Food Trail. We have 83 members, and we just got calls from 4 others that want to join now, which is very good. We also did a series of videos called Cooking with the Chefs of the North Coast Food Trail, and those are really fun, and in cooperation with Astoria and Cannon Beach, we're going to do an online campaign with those videos. And it all includes recipes too, which is really good. And we also started a guidebook on, we're starting a guidebook now on culinary experiences in Tillamook County, which would be fun. Partners for Rural Food Systems. I just brought in some of the architectural sketches for the building that will be right next to the officers' mess hall at the Port of Tillamook Bay and be connected to it. And the officers' mess hall will double as an event and like tourism, food table, farm to table type of events and training. And we are partnering with the Port of Tillamook Bay, Oregon Food Bank on that. And we're at a point now where we're going out and looking for money. And that building is probably going to cost about $1.5 million. But that's not a lot compared to what other things can cost. So it'll be good. We also did a lot of cultural heritage in the arts. We revamped the quilt trail brochure, did a cultural heritage trail. We're working with artists in Tillamook to create an arts district designation in the town. And there is no official state designation for that, so we're going to create our own here in Tillamook. We also found out that we are the only tourism organization that partners with all of our cultural heritage groups and to do cooperative marketing. And it was the Oregon Heritage Commission that told us that. So I thought, wow, that's great. We also did grants and sponsorships. Riverbend Players, the Garibaldi Seafood and Spirits Festival, and the DeGard Anniversary event, which drew hundreds of people, and 70% of them stayed overnight. So they're really good. In an industry support too, we make sure that our staff is sent to tourism educational opportunities. And Nicole is right now at the Oregon Tourism Leadership Academy. We send everybody there, and they'll be starting. Everyone has taken the George Washington Certificate in Destination Management and Sustainable Tourism. So you'll have a really educated group that can take over if I ever decide to retire, which would be great, I think. Return on responsibility on page 10, we did a lot of wayfinding. We also did these good neighbor guides. And this is a way for the communities to share with visitors and residents, and they put these in, they mailed them out to everybody and also put them in all the STRs. And it is, here's what we expect from in your behavior, and here's all some safety things. Here are, about wildlife, how to, don't approach, be careful with riptides, all those kinds of things. And then everyone got a window cling with all the emergency numbers on it. And we're doing that for Rockaway now too. And we have a lot of wayfinding underway right now. And this year and next year, we'll have completed quite a bit of wayfinding. So we're nearing toward it'll just be one-offs after this. Like I said before, we had a wilderness first aid class for 16 North County emergency volunteers and professionals, and we're doing 3 more this year. The Volunteer Adventures is just grown like crazy. Um, we, my favorite thing this year was the Cape Mears video, Cape Mears Loop Road video. I was watching it last night and again got kind of, after watching it, because it was so funny. The engineers, they were, interviewed all, and they go, this is what we do. This is no big deal. No, it's a big deal. It's a miracle. We want to tell your story. And I was really glad that they took part and did tell their story because it's something most of us can't do, and they can. So it was wonderful. There's a lot of accessibility that we got done this year. In addition to the 9 beach wheelchairs we had, 3 David's chairs were placed. A 4th is coming to Rockaway Beach, to the Catholic Church there, because they have volunteers there most of the time, and they're right at a nice beach access. We also installed hearing loop technology at the Creamery and the Tillamook Air Museum, and that helps people who are hard of hearing or wear hearing aids. It helps cut out background noise so they can hear better what they need to hear. And it cuts out that like white noise kind of stuff. And we're going to do more of that. We also got a $65,000 grant from Travel Oregon to work with Wheel the World. And that is for accessibility travel, wheelchair travel. And they did a video as well. And we are going to be included as a recommended destination for those who travel in wheelchairs, and it's on their international website. So I'm really glad that we were able to meet their standards and meet what they expected a destination like to be. We also did empowering access, and we did the accessibility studies of 3 county parks. And our new county parks director, Dan Keyes, took the plan and said, we're going to do it. And so I'm really glad that we were able to partner with him. A lot of trails stuff happened this year, and that's really at the top of people's desires in this county. And so Dan saw that a lot of the towns along the Salmonberry Trail coastal section were kind of vying for some of the same grants. So he said, let's get together, let's do a collaborative effort so we're not competing, and we can take the power of each town and go for much larger grants. So he's put that together with an MOU, and he's working with the Salmonberry Trail with introductory hikes. He also created he went to DeGar Brewing and said, we need to raise money for Trail Keepers of Oregon. Is there something that we could partner with you on? And they created a TKO beer and sold it at their event. And we got $2,500 in sales from that to go to Trail Keepers. It was really good. Dan's doing a wonderful job. People love working with him. They will sometimes call me and say, I can't get a hold of Dan, and it's he I want to work with. And I go, I'm so glad you said that because he's great. He's been good. And then reinvestment. And this is getting the word out in ways. This is page 13. But we do it in a very targeted and thoughtful way. And we also try to focus on locals and their businesses. So every year with KOIN, we do their Oregon Harvest documentary. And this year it was Tillamook Bay Seafoods, Wilson View Farm, and Tillamook Beekeepers Association. Coming up, we have 3 more, 2 farms and a fishery. And that's being probably filmed about now because it goes out in October. And we do Oregon Field Guide, Northwestern Sports Radio, which is about fishing, and Explore Oregon podcast, and the OPB online program called Super Abundant, and that's for the North Coast Food Trail. We do our visitor guide, and we are completely out. We've had so many requests. The Tillamook Chamber manages distribution for us, and Justin had called me I think it was in late May, and said, oh, we have enough to get through maybe September. And then he called me 2 weeks ago and went, oh, we are out. And there was such a demand for it. So I spent 3 days updating the old one, get that out for. Um, But an investment too is also operations. So, and I've already talked to a lot about that already. We also revamped our HR practices. Um, And I've been taking HR classes, and Oregon has some of the strictest HR laws, employee laws. And so we want to make sure that we are in compliance with all of those. And we also use a reporting dashboard for a lot of what we do now, so we can gauge what people are looking for on our website or our social media. We know where they're from, and we know what pages they look like, and it's been a really good analysis for us. And then our team, of course, is changing. I wanted to keep Marnie Johnston on here because she did so much for us this last year, and I just want to give her a big shout out because we are now doing an audit. An audit has been requested nearly every year from our board, and it wasn't done. And they said, please just do it every 2 years, and it was never done. So Marnie said, we're doing an audit this year, and she got everything in order, and we're working on the audit now. And in our accounting services contractor, Kyle, is helping me with that, and that's been great. So we have a lot coming up, and I'll come back in 6 months and tell you what we've done so far this fiscal year. But I really do want to thank you, and I want to thank all the support we've received throughout the county. I think one of the best things we did was do community planning, destination management planning with our towns and our cities. We've done 7 of them so far, and we've walked away with as much benefit from it as they got. And nearly all of them have they prioritize projects, and they're already starting on them, or they've already finished their priorities. One of the ones was Manzanita, and they wanted, one of their priorities was to have an STR code enforcement officer. So they have one, and I checked with Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. How can TLT be used to help support this position, this officer position? They said yes, as long as their time is regulated, is made aware and apparent how much time they spend working with STR groups or the visitor center or with us, and that they ask that the officer, when hired, reports to us quarterly. And Max Halverson, is that officer. He is a Nehalem native, young man, and he was a Portland police officer for a few years, and he wanted to move back home. So he is the officer, and he has done a fantastic job. We just had our fourth quarter report, and I would like very much if he would come in and do this report to you and just learn about what he learned, because I think even the sheriff's office, I know we'd talked about how could TLT be used with the sheriff's department, and if X number of hours, if that is used for that purpose, the TLT can pay for that. So he's keeps great records. He set up a wonderful system, and I'm really thrilled with it. So I'd like to have him come back and show you. And then maybe during one of your Wednesday afternoon sessions, I can have our architect for the food hub come in and walk you through what we're thinking, what we would be doing. So that's a ways off yet.
Thank
So,
you.
any questions?
Thank you. Oh, fabulous. Your timing is so good. Yesterday, I was at the city of Manzanita. I had a chance to talk to Mayor Stock yesterday and also to the Manzanita city manager, Leila Aman. And she
Yeah.
was telling me about the program that you are working on with Manzanita for tourism, and also about the code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
And so I would love to learn more about that. And I'd love to hear from Layla offered to come with you with
Great.
Officer Halverson. And
Right.
to make a presentation to us about how that's working.
Yeah.
And I would love for us to learn more about that, so thank you. And thank you for all of your work. This body of work is so important and so impressive. And listening to you, I was just thinking about how lucky Tillamook County is to have had you here working on this for nearly 10 years. How many years?
Almost 10 years, December, yeah.
Yeah, because you mentioned Jeremy early on. Jeremy and I were on the first, whatever we called it, committee.
Yeah.
What was it called?
I think it was the Tourism Advisory Committee.
think you're
Yeah,
right.
because it evolved later.
Yeah, you're right. After the county passed TLT, the voters passed the TLT tax, the Tourism Advisory Committee was formed, and Jeremy and I were both on that. And then sometime thereafter, 6 months or so thereafter, the county hired you.
Yeah.
And and to your great credit, you have built something extraordinary. And you mentioned it early on that other places in the country, in the state, in the country, and now worldwide have recognized that we're doing something really special here. And that is thanks largely due to you and your leadership. So your vision, your expertise. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. But, it's been a team effort. It's been a county effort. I don't do it alone, that's for sure. But people are seeing, as one mayor said, we're the EU of Tillamook County. And I said, what? And she says, no, you come in and you meet with all of us and you work with us individually. And we really appreciate that. And I was flattered, very flattered by that.
Well, you're right, of course, that we don't do it alone, but this really is your vision because it wasn't being done elsewhere. So credit to you for your vision.
Well, thank
And
you.
yeah, and not only, some people have vision and great ideas, but don't have the follow through or the ability to actually make them happen. And you also have that, which is the magic combination. The vision and the ability to make it happen is the extraordinary thing.
When I was in high tech for 20 years, and I had one engineer that I worked with for like 6-7 years, and he said, Nan, please take this as a compliment, but you're like a dog with a bone. Said, you just keep chewing and chewing until you get it done. And I said, well, why not? It's like this is what you need. And I always said, this is what the community needs, this type of tourism organization. So,
Thank you. When I think about all the good that has been accomplished, we've been talking about TLT recently, of course, as you know, and all the good that has been accomplished
Yes.
in Tillamook County as a result of TLT, which
Yes.
includes most of this.
Yeah.
Because not all of your work is funded by TLT dollars, but the majority of it
Yeah.
is. And so all of this, what is all kinds of work, but I think of economic development work, all
Yeah.
of the businesses that you've supported and grown, and the stability that's been provided to those businesses, the enhancements to arts, with Nicola here in the room, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about art and the ability, the intersect of tourism and art, and
Yeah.
how art can be supported with these dollars. And, it really is extraordinary what you've accomplished and continue to accomplish. And somebody was just talking to me, and I was trying to remember who, but I don't, because that's how my mind works. It just starts tipping things out. But just recently, somebody was saying, have you heard of the North Coast Food Trail? I said, well, yes, I have. And so, and it was a random thing. Like now people are just talking about it. They're hearing about it. What is the North Coast Food Trail? That's a great example of something that you started that enabled the member businesses to stay afloat during COVID, which is a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, and you know how that whole started was, I embarked on a listening tour from the very beginning, and I still can do that. And I found out that the food businesses, whether they were farms or fisheries or restaurants or whatever, that they just didn't have time to do any marketing. They're all mom and pop businesses. And I thought, well, let's come together and we'll see what we can do. And we held a Travel Oregon Rural Tourism Studio. It was a 2-day one. 70 people showed up each day. And at the end of that, we decided that we were going to start a food trail, and it was going to be a 2-county food trail because people came from Clatsop County, they came from Lincoln County, and Lincoln County was getting its own central food trail, so Lincoln County stayed with us for a year. But when we did that rural tourism studio, it was the conversations between the workshops that I went, what? They didn't have a commercial kitchen that they could go make, prep their food for their food truck. They didn't have a place where if they wanted to can sauerkraut or do jams, there was no place here. If you wanted to dehydrate the wasabi leaves so you can make wasabi sauce, you had to drive to Corvallis. And I thought, what can we do about this? And so we got a series of Business Oregon grants that put us on this strategic path to getting food hubs. And I just created more work for myself, but it's what's needed. What is needed, and that's what I look at. So.
Thank you. And I think the agricultural hub is the natural extension of that work.
Yes.
So it's fabulous to see phase 2, if you will, coming
Yeah.
about. And the plans, the design is beautiful.
Yeah, and it's a lot like the food hub that I saw up in at Washington State University up in I think it's not Des Moines, but it's south of Bellingham, and it was wonderful. And I thought this is like, and when the Jim Fanjoy, the architect, came, and I said, "Did you go to that food hub up there?" And he goes, "No, I have it." And I said, this was my dream to have it look like this. So it's great.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Well, thank you. I think, Commissioner, you pretty well covered the waterfront here this morning. That Nan, since I've known her, and I was one of 2 people who hired her, basically, back when Economic Development Council, which was her home for a few years, till she spun off to a 501c6. And what you have said is absolutely true. She's been not only a change agent, but I guess a benevolent partner of everything in the tourism industry. And tourism has been happening here, whether we like it or not. And some people, as was mentioned some years ago, thought, well, this is a bad thing. These people are coming down, they're going to clog our roads, they're going to take our fishing spots and all of this. And I think there's probably some truth to that. But when you have something that is naturally occurring, then the next step is to manage it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she did. I remember the first year was basically former college president Connie Green and I that were running the thing, and neither of us, even though I was in the business, I certainly didn't have the background that Nan had, and it was a pretty easy choice to hire her when she turned in her resume, and she came on, and then as they say, the rest is history. But we went from something that most of us thought early on would be marketing. Let's tell our story. Let's see if we can get more people here from other places. And we've got something absolutely marvelous to talk about, meaning 75 miles of coastline and green forests and fishing opportunities and the dairy industry and all of that. And we had something to sell that you don't necessarily have in the middle of Kansas. And so that was the easy part, but then managing all these hundreds of thousands of people who've come this way is different, and she's been absolutely the bedrock of doing all this. And if I look back, as we all do, over the last 10 years, I'm not sure how much has come in, but it's upwards of 60 million, something like that.
I think it was, as of, I think, 2023, close to 55 million.
$55 million. And that stayed in our community for the most part, and it's
Yes.
developed all kinds of things. I'm thinking of the Kiowanda Corridor Project and others around the signage system around the county. So the money that was started with the TLT has been put to good use, but when you have that kind of money, you also need management. And here we have management, and so it's working. And I can't think of a better success story where we've started with literally nothing. She came in, built a staff, and then it evolved into what you see today. So have to give her another A plus. And I don't know if there's a higher grade, but we'll leave it at A plus. But if ever there was a change agent and a good manager, she's sitting before us this morning.
Agreed.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the county being open to doing that because most destination marketing organizations, that's what they do. They have to market. Now, there are reasons a lot of them have to do that. They might have a convention center they've got to fill. They might have hundreds of hotels they've got to fill. And I completely understand that. But the situation here in Tillamook County was way different. And, that wouldn't have worked here in the long run at all. It's, we still do marketing, but we do it in local voices. We interview people and put them on film talking about the things they care about. And the reason we do that is because we want to reach people who care about that too. And I get pitches from advertising agencies all the time. Like, oh, we can help you reach 400,000 people. We can reach 4 million people. And I usually just delete. But once in a while, I'll write back and say, I don't want to reach 4 million people. I want to reach 4 or 40 who care. And that's been our philosophy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
We're grateful for your work and for your time. Thank you. Okay. We will move on in our agenda to item 6, which is consideration of a professional services agreement with Paul E. Betlinski, MD, for medical examiner services. And with us, we have District Attorney Aubrey Olson. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Basically, this is just kind of pro forma. The county's required to provide these services. We've had a contract with Dr. Betlinski, Dr. B for short, I believe since 1979.
Bless his heart.
Literally my entire life. And so we are just here for basically renewing that contract. I know it's already been signed by Rachel Haggerty. It's been reviewed by County Council. So I'm hoping you've had a chance to review it, and I'm open for questions if you have them.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. No, I don't. Well, I guess I do have one or two. I've been privy to a couple of conversations about his longevity and what he's done. I met him at one time, I think at a county fair a year or two ago. What are the succession plans for someone? Is there someone when he finally says enough is enough, and is there another physician, or are they hard to get these days?
We're undergoing conversations about that as we speak. We actually started meeting with Dr. B last year prior to entering the previous year's contract about that very issue. And we have roped in Dr. Hurst, who is the state medical examiner. And we've also brought in my commissioner liaison, Commissioner Bell, to talk about plans for moving into the future, because I do know that Dr. Betlinski is hoping to hang up his hat at some point.
Of course. Well, it's one of those things, is out of 100 physicians, how many are even interested in doing this? Is this uncommon or not so common?
That's a tough question to answer. To do it in the capacity Dr. B has over the last 44 years, there are none. So that is why we are trying to basically work with the statewide medical examiner, looking into how other counties are handling this, because apparently the model that Dr. B follows is not traditional, or maybe it's traditional, but it's not followed anymore by other practitioners. Dr. B basically does all the work of a medical legal death investigator, as well as what the medical examiner does, meaning he goes out on scene, he thoroughly documents, he does all the follow-up necessary, and then reviews everything, does a lot of background work, where in today's world we have medical legal death investigators. Some of them are police officers, some of them are private citizens. Some counties have a full-time MDI, medical legal death investigator, that reviews the work of other people who go out on scene. In those counties, the actual district medical examiner within that county does not ever go out on a scene. They don't respond to calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. They basically work during normal business hours and review all of the work the other people have done underneath them to determine if they're able to sign a death certificate and perform the other necessary functions that the actual medical doctor, who is the medical examiner, is required to perform.
So my understanding is how this works, and correct me if I'm wrong, is his services are required when there's an unattended death, and meaning that if someone passes on in a hospital where there are medical professionals, doctors that can pronounce the death at that point, then he's not called in? Or how does that work in terms of if a medical doctor and it's clear and that doctor says here's the cause of death, then his services are not required. Otherwise they are. Is that essentially how it works?
That's a general way of putting it. The statute does require certain situations when a death is investigated. We tend to just generally refer to them as unattended deaths. That does cause some confusion about what exactly that means. There are times when someone is being treated in a hospital where the services of the medical examiner are required, specifically if someone comes in and dies under certain circumstances within 24 hours of being admitted into the hospital.
Okay, no, thank you. That's all mine.
Okay, well, thank you for your work on not only this, but in leading the project to do succession planning. Because I was in the last meeting with you, and it's, you put it very well, the model itself needs to change. And I think I agree with you that it would be impossible to find anyone to do what Dr. B is doing and has been doing. And he said that also that model, used to, there were other medical examiners in other counties who were doing that, and as those people retired, they found that they couldn't find anyone to replace them. So we're in that process now, and Dr. B has been very, very generous to just continue to work, but of course he doesn't want to do it forever. So so we're in the process, but I'm grateful to him that he is willing to continue. So, and I'm fully supportive of this contract. I think we're ready.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of a professional services agreement with Paul E. Belensky, medical doctor, for medical examiner services, I move approval.
And I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, and item 7 is consideration of a professional services agreement with Wadd's Funeral Home and Tillamook Crematory for removal and transport of deceased subjects to Chief Medical Examiner Services. Again, D.A. Olson.
Thank you, Commissioners. And again, this is a pro forma, just like with the previous agenda item, and they kind of go hand in hand. We contract with Wadd's. We have for as long as I know. And basically it's just part of the process with these death investigations that the body has to be removed from the scene. We have that contract, and we are asking to renew that contract or enter another contract again this year with Wadd's to do that. Wadd's is the only service here in Tillamook County that I know of that would even be able to do it. So we're just asking to continue that relationship.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. No questions really. Only comment would be that they've been around a long time, and I've known the current owner, and I believe his father was in the business for some years, and they've been an integral part of Tillamook County. And I think if you move around the countryside, you'll find one or two organizations that do that. It's simply a necessity of what happens in America or around the world. So I've never heard anything derogatory about them or their services or their professionalism when they do it. They do what they were asked to do, and I don't know how else you can ask for more.
Thank you. I'm also fully supportive and grateful for their service. So I think we're ready for a motion.
Hey, Madam Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with Wadd's Funeral Home and Tillamook Crematory for removal and transport of deceased subjects to Chief Examiner Services, I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a great day.
You too. Item 8 is consideration of amendment number 1 to intergovernmental agreement number 6547 with the State of Oregon Department of Corrections for the implementation and operation of county correctional programs. And perhaps we have Lieutenant Seaholm with us online.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you
Good
see
morning.
me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Okay. So this is amendment number 1 to our intergovernmental agreement for our main funding source through the state of Oregon, our grant and aid. This was done because we received an additional $93,901 through House Bill 5204, which was a budget bill. So this was $16 million that got received by the state for Department of Corrections or County Community Corrections Agency, and then our percentage allocation was that $93,901. So that prompted a new budget summary that we needed to supply to the state. And so none of our programs have changed. It's just the allocation of monies.
Thank you. Well, extra money is a good problem to have. Commissioner?
Thank you. No, I have no questions. Like you say, this continues on what is in place and some additional funding. And I learned a long time ago, if somebody's handing you money, you can take it and then ask questions, but don't turn it down. And this is part of an ongoing program, so I will support.
Thank you. As will I. I'm happy to sign an amendment for extra funds, so I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of amendment number 1 to intergovernmental agreement number 6547 with the State of Oregon Department of Corrections for the implementation and operation of county correctional programs, I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thanks, Commissioners.
All right, items 9 and 10 are postponed. We'll move on to item 11, which is consideration of a professional services agreement with Dowell for the Big Trout Emergency Temporary Bridge Project. And with us, we have Chris Leidy, Director of Public Works. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Commissioners. I guess it's still winter here. It was hot the other day, so I wanted to cool everything down. So this is last week or previously, we had submitted an agreement with the Office of Emergency Management related to our FEMA declared storm in January of 24. So this most recent declaration to be added on to the December 23 declaration from Federal Highway. So pertaining to the FEMA one, this allows Dow to work on that emergency temporary bridge. And this one gets into some of the design and then also construction administration management inspection for that. The intent is to take this to 15% and then start working with contractors on what do they have in their yard. Summertime is very busy for contractors, as every single bridge contractor has all of they're booked throughout the summer. So this work will hopefully start taking place soon, and we can get something in there right away. The work that you see is for $98,646 with the scope of work to be completed by June 28th of 24. Oftentimes we'll see a delayed completion because there's post-work paperwork that needs to be done with all bridges. So it's not when the work is done, it's the paperwork that follows, if that's important.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. No real questions. I'll just comment that this situation with the Big Trout Emergency Bridge in the Hebo, South County area, we've talked about that for quite some time, and it has to do in part with the meandering of Three Rivers, which is a single river, and how it endangers certain private property and things that have to be done to mitigate that. This is part of it, so it needs to be signed and taken forward.
Agreed. All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see. In consideration of a professional services agreement with Dowell for the Big Trout Emergency Temporary Bridge Project, I move approval.
And I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Okay, Chris, you have item 12 as well, consideration of a prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Far Line Bridge, Inc. for the Yellow Fir Temporary Bridge Project. You're muted, Chris.
So the Yellow Fir Bridge is what you see as my background. This has been a problem child for a long time. We started down the process of doing design engineering, knowing that we would get funds. Currently, there's no funds to replace it. So we're going to take this project up to 30% and then start trying to get grant money. The Dick Creek Bridge, which is on Bay Ocean Road, which they're going to start scheduling to construct that in about a week from now, where we close down Bay Ocean Road for a month. The beams that are on that date back to the December 2015 event, which are always temporary beams, this project will subsequently, it's already been designed, and we went through the proper advertising, notice of intent to award, et cetera, for, the proper advertising for this and a notice to award for this project has been completed. We would relocate the beams off of Dick Creek and relocate them to overspan the Yellow Fir Bridge. We own those beams, and it solves a lot of problems for this bridge. So Farline has the contract with ODOT to do a reconstruction of the Dick Creek Bridge. And it made sense. They were the low bidder and the only bidder for this Yellow Fir temporary bridge. So the amount in this case it really has to do with the cranes, $102,265.00. The work for that is to be completed realistically by August, but then we have the paperwork that goes forward afterwards. That becomes, the bridge right now is not on the National Bridge Inventory. The new bridge will be on the National Bridge Inventory. So there's paperwork that needs to take place with that. So we anticipate the completion of that by December 31st of 2024. Again, not when the project physically is done, it's the paperwork that follows. One thing to note with this particular project, we do have a digital copy of the performance bond. Hard copy is in the mail, so we're requesting approval. And then when the hard copy of the performance bond arrives, then the signature to follow upon the physical hard copy of the performance bond. We have the digital.
Okay, questions, comments?
No, thank you. No main questions other than to remind people what you just said in the earlier one was a lot of bridges, and right now the contractors who service bridges apparently are fully booked for the summer during the construction season. Do you know off the top of your head how many bridges we have? I know it's like 4,000 culverts, but how many bridges do we actually have responsibility for across the county?
118, which is one bridge in every 3 miles. It's actually less than one bridge per 3 miles. So it's one bridge per 3 miles, and 118 bridges and that's counting the addition of the Green and Sampson Creek bridges from last fall.
Wow, thank you. Well, I guess as long as water runs downhill, we'll have bridges. So I'm okay with this too, understanding that some of these things happen quickly, and this one sounds like we're able to take the next step.
Thank you. I agree. And I'm glad that we're able to repurpose those beams. That is a good use of that material. And I'm willing to move forward with the electronic copy, sign the hard copy later. And I'm particularly pleased that the new bridge will go on the national inventory so that it eventually there will be funding available for that bridge when it has to get replaced. So what makes the difference? Like how is this bridge being converted from a local bridge to being on the national inventory?
So structures that are less than 20 feet in length, which is Yellow Fir is 19.9 feet. If we tried to say, let's get this thing at 20 feet, it's how they measure it. And we said, well, if you measure it this way, we can get 20 feet and get on the inventory, which opens up funding for future replacement. Not being on the inventory, there's no money. This is the Tillamook River near its headwaters, so it's a much smaller creek. And there is a bend, a meander in the river, so that 20 feet works fine. The beams that will go over this are 50 feet. So it's quite a bit larger. And this particular case, we will take the guardrails off and then we'll span across the existing bridge. So the existing bridge will remain in place. The foundation for that existing bridge will stay. The guardrail goes away. We drop the concrete beams over and we put those on pads on either side of it instead of on piles like we would normally do.
Great solution. All right, thank you. I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, Madam Chair, in consideration of a prevailing wage contract for construction with Fairlane Bridge Incorporated for the Yellow Fir Temporary Bridge Project, I move approval.
And I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Chris. All right, item 13 is consideration of a professional services agreement with Parametrics, Inc. for monitoring and engineering at the closed landfill and operating transfer station. Justin Weiss, Program Manager for Tillamook County Solid Waste. Good morning, Justin.
Morning, Commissioners. Yes, before you this morning, we have an agreement with Parametrics Incorporated. Tillamook County, we've had contracts with them going back about 10 years pertaining to this issue of closed landfill and operating transfer station monitoring. So this is going to include stormwater samples from both the Tillamook and Manzanita transfer stations. The Manzanita transfer station recently, about a year ago, finally received a 1200V stormwater permit. So we have some requirements, some sampling, some on-site paperwork, and they're going to help us set that up in Manzanita. And then we've had ongoing operations in Tillamook with closed landfill water sampling, as well as stormwater discharge sampling there. So this contract amounts to $61,453. It's right around what we had budgeted for our fiscal year budget. And then we also will be able to use some of our overflow stormwater grant money that we've received from DEQ for the Manzanita project. That will allow us to set up the plan, and we'll have additional funds available beyond what's budgeted. So there's a little bit of cushion there for additional services with our $300,000 grant with DEQ. So that's the high-level talking points. Happy to answer any questions. This agreement we've had with Parametrics, that said about 10 years ongoing. It did expire beginning of this year, so there's been a little bit of a lapse where I've been doing stormwater sampling, running them over to the Portland area. So I'm happy to get this contract in place to have their expertise and assistance with this matter. So happy to answer any questions if you do have any.
Thank you, Justin. Commissioner?
Thank you. My only comment would be Parametrics. I'm somewhat familiar with them. They've been in business for many, many years. They, as I recall, were one of the principal engineering firms for the Pacific City Joint Water and Sanitary Authority when I was on that board some years back. So they're mainly civil engineers and probably have some other specialties as well. And so I would consider them to be one of the premier organizations in Oregon for this sort of thing. And they keep going, and so we'll get quality work out of them, and this is a part of a much larger process to keep things moving forward, I guess you could say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Justin, I was wondering about the closed landfill sampling and runoff sampling. For how long do we have to continue to sample after a landfill is closed?
So, Commissioner Bell, we've had ongoing issues with some E. coli and some copper levels coming out of the discharge at certain points on site. So we're past, I don't know off the top of my head, I think it's 30 years, which the landfill has been closed that long. But because of these concentrations coming out, we built up a reserve fund of just over $1 million in case there's any disaster. We have that fund per DEQ requirements. So I actually met with a company out of Washington about 2 months ago. They're using worms to do, and this has been an ongoing issue at the landfill back to my predecessor, Dave McCall. They tried an oyster project with Oregon State University to see if the oyster shells could help in filtrating those levels down to a level where we could do a discharge, and that wasn't quite successful. But I met with some worm. It's a newer technology, worm remediation, and they were quite confident that that could be a solution. It's just finding the funding. And so I'm looking to, potentially tap into our reserve fund, put a couple $100,000 into a pilot and see if the worms can get those levels below the necessary thresholds. And this is something parametrics will also assist with to see if we can reach that point. But we are able to. We just have to find the right solution to get those levels to the level we need, where we can move forward and have that landfill be less of an ongoing issue for us in terms of management. So that's a great question.
Thank you. I know this is a serious issue, but worm remediation kind of cracks me up. If so, tell us the idea. Is it that the worms would actually digest the problematic material?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think biology of worms, they are typically shedding their casts on a regular basis, and so they absorb it internally. I was surprised that didn't hurt the population or just wipe them out. I'm sure it depends on what kind of materials you're looking to filter out, but the big one now is PFAS, the polyfluorinated. We're finding that in a lot of drinking water, in humans. So they are even saying that the worms could potentially be a PFAS source. So I'm not quite the expert scientist on it, but if we do end up working with them moving forward, I'd love to maybe have them come before the commission and give a little synopsis of how that technology works. And it's quite interesting, kind of cutting edge. There's not a lot of people doing it. So we're going to keep continuing to talk to them and see if it's a potential solution.
Terrific. Well, we would like to learn more about that if we go in that direction. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're ready for a motion.
I don't know if we want worms in this room or not. We shall see. All right, Madam Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with Parametrics Incorporated for monitoring and engineering at the closed landfill and operating transfer station, I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, commissioners.
Item 14 is consideration of a personal services agreement with TRUP for a job classification study. Jody Wilson, HR Director. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you today?
Well, thank you.
This is a follow-up from our board meeting last week where we talked about the proposal. We have been looking at the countywide classifications, and over time, our businesses have changed, our terminologies have changed, and we are asking for this contract to be able to go through, work with our employees and departments to do a job analysis for the work that's currently being done, making sure that employees or the job classifications are currently categorized, rewriting them, refreshing them as needed for our next upcoming cycle of market studies.
Okay, terrific. Commissioner?
Thank you. We have talked about this before, and as my understanding, this is the last piece of what has been an ongoing project now for at least a year, well, more than a year. And then this is, when this is done, we then have looked at every classification across the entire county. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, then I'm certainly in favor of finishing it up. And I don't know about this firm, but I think there was a selection process that was followed. And so let's finish what we've been doing and then get ready for the next one in the future.
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of a personal services agreement with TRUP for a job classification study, I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Item 15 is postponed. Item 16 is consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Sarah Absher to attend the 2024 Northwest Regional Floodplain Management Association Conference in Pasco, Washington, September 17th through 20th, 2024. With us, we have Sarah Absher, Director of the Department of Community Development. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. So it is time for the annual NORFMA conference. This is the Northwest Regional Floodplain Management Association. This conference is a conference that Melissa Yank and I, who is the next agenda item discussion, that we attend annually as certified floodplain managers certified by FEMA. We are required to take continuing education and obtain credits to keep our certifications active. And this is where we go each year to do that. So it's a 3-day conference. It will be from September 17th through the 20th. It is in Pasco, Washington, which is pretty close to home, but it is just north of Umatilla on the Washington side. So we hope for your approval so that we can attend this conference, find out more about what's going on with FEMA and floodplain regulations and the flood insurance program, which is also in some sort of evolution, and come back with things to report and keep our certifications in good standing.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Well, thank you. As I've said at previous meetings, I've consistently supported the education of staff. If we don't do that, we soon have a staff that is not up to date and not using current practices or communicating with peers across the industry. I guess wondering, is Pasco out of the Columbia floodplain over there where you're going?
That is a great question, Commissioner. There are some, so actually, you know what? I was actually looking at that, to be honest with you. It does border the Columbia River, so I bet they do have floodplains.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, be careful. Take a life jacket or something in case Grand Coulee Dam gives way. But I think you need to go find out what's going on. And as everybody knows, our flooding situation here in Tillamook County is a significant issue from all kinds of fronts. And so the more you can know about it and know what the industry is doing in the piers, then I would say go and take good notes.
Thank you. And I would add to that, I am typically a guest speaker on one topic or another at these conferences. And this is the first year with Melissa actually being on the board for NORFMA. We have that Tillamook County representation, and I am excited to go because she will actually be one of our hosts as one of the NORFMA board members. So it's going to be a good time. Lots to learn and do.
Good.
That's great. All right, I am fully supportive also. It's, we as a board, we support training for our leaders, and also this is required. So we're certainly supportive. I think we're ready for a motion.
Hey, Madam Chair, in consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Sarah Absher to attend the 2024 Northwest Regional Floodplain Management Association Conference in Pasco, Washington on 9/17 through 9/20/24. I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. And item 17 is for, as you said, Melissa Yank to attend also. Consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Melissa Yank to attend the 2024 Northwest Regional Floodplain Management Association Conference in Pasco, Washington, September 17 through 20. Is there anything additional you want to tell us about Melissa's attendance?
No, thank you. It's just, it is our way to keep those certifications in good standing, and we are just so thankful to be able to attend these to do that.
Sure. Then I think we're ready for a motion.
Hey, Madam Chair, in consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Melissa Yank to attend the 2024 Northwest Regional Floodplain Management Association Conference in Pasco, Washington on September 17 through September 9, 2024, I move approval.
And I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay, item 18 is consideration of a participation agreement with Sourcewell for Cooperative Purchasing Program registration. With us, we have Isabel Gilda, Executive Assistant.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today before you, good morning, is a procurement participation agreement with the Sourcewell, and this is just another one of our cooperating purchasing agreements that allows the county to participate in cooperative purchasing gives us access to hundreds of publicly awarded contracts. And those are previously negotiated, which means for our purchasing, we don't have to go out for bids. Prices are more competitive. This agreement with Sourcewell is no cost. It's just gives us this access. We have access to a database of suppliers, and it saves staff time because we don't have to go out for bid or do all the research to find the best price on some products. It essentially gives us more buying power, and we also benefit from the lower prices. And that's the agreement in a nutshell.
Wonderful, thank you. Commissioner, any questions of Isabel?
Yes, I will ask a couple. I should probably ask you separately. I'm not familiar with Sourcewell. What sort of organization is that?
They're just one of the participating entities in the procurement process, the world of procurement. We have a number of agreements that we have GovSpend, we have Omnia, so they're just another participating organization that allows us access to their database.
Are they private or nonprofit, or how are they organized?
I don't know the answer to that question. I imagine they are publicly owned. I can't say for sure.
Okay. Well, I just had not heard that name. I'm pretty familiar with some of these cooperatives, including the Oregon Public Purchasing Association, Purchasing Managers Association. They've been around for many, many years, and there used to be another called the Northwest Public Purchasing Association that was actually like 3 Western states and 2 Canadian provinces. And I don't know that they're still around, but I absolutely support cooperative purchasing because quantity discounts are sometimes quite significant. In our case, then, if we needed something that's already under contract and we can take advantage of that contract, I think that's a good thing. So I do support this, and I will vote yes.
Wonderful, as will I. So I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of a participation agreement with Sourcewell for cooperative purchasing program registration, I move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we covered item 19 at the top of the agenda, so we're on to board concerns. Commissioner?
I understood we might have an executive session today, but maybe that is not the case. Do we know?
I believe that's going to be Monday morning. Okay.
Monday morning, okay. All right, no, then I have no other concerns except to remind everybody again that County Fair is next week, and that's a big deal in Tillamook County, and whatever you're doing, stop doing it and go to the fair.
That's right. Thank you. Well, I have no board concerns either. The weekly commissioner board briefing that was scheduled for today is canceled because Commissioner Scar is out. So we generally don't have board briefings unless all of us are here to talk about something. The commissioners will attend a budget committee roundtable meeting Monday, August 5th, 2024 at 1 p.m. to discuss upcoming budget planning. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue in Tillamook. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149. Conference ID 866-914-607#. Commissioner, did you want to say anything about that? About the budget roundtable?
Well, our budget meeting, the one Monday afternoon, is, I will say a little bit, yes, thank you. As I think many people in the public know, and perhaps those in the county as well, the county's general fund, apart from the special funds, which have specific types of funding and are generally in balance and going forward, and like the Health Department, the Parks Department, and a number of others, the library, for example. The general fund, if you look out 2 or 3 and 4 years, has some financial issues ahead of us and would be considerably out of balance if certain measures are not taken. So what we've done at the commissioner level and then on to our various departments is created a number of options for consideration, and that number is well over 50. And they include a lot of minor things like perhaps what is charged for a marriage license or a passport, up to including some employee cutbacks, a shortened work week, and all kinds of things that are on the table. I will say absolutely nothing has been decided, but I think it's the duty of the commission and the whole staff to look at what are the options and how do we remain solvent, so to speak, or how do we remain in balance. And part of the reasons we're here is the revenue sources for counties are somewhat limited simply by measures 5 and 50 that were put in many years ago, limiting the property tax increase to a certain percentage. And we've lived with that for a number of years. There are other things that have happened, including inflation, which affects virtually everybody at every level. And then maybe a somewhat more significant part is the change in harvest levels in the Tillamook Forest. For many years, Tillamook County, Clatsop County, and Washington County have enjoyed considerable revenue, even though it varied from year to year, from the Tillamook State Forest. With the adoption of the Habitat Conservation Plan, that has changed a bit, and what used to be a sine wave of good years and bad years is now predicted to be more stable, but somewhat less. And now, as a result of those actions, roughly 2/3 of the forest is off limits to harvest. And that has a significant effect both on Tillamook County and our special districts. And so we're working through that and anticipating what is real and not necessarily the absolute worst case, but you plan for the worst and hope for the best. And it would be foolhardy and bad public policy, in my judgment, to sit and say, okay, well, we'll work it out or we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That's really not how you manage a multi-million-dollar organization, in my judgment. So we've started this series of meetings with our management team saying, okay, we have all these options and they need to be examined in considerable detail, meaning can they be done through the Board of Commissioners, or do they require some legislative action? Do they require a vote of the people? All of these things, and so it's all on the table. And so we're going through a pretty comprehensive exercise to determine the way forward and what could be done short-term, what could be long-term, and we've set some goals as to what numbers we want to achieve. And it's one of those things that you'd rather not do it, but it has to be done, and actually it probably should be done even in the best of times, is looking what you do and should you be doing it at all, and how much are you spending to do it, and is it making money for the county or losing money, or all of those things. And so I guess I'd say, and as we can report on this as time goes on, but right now we're looking out as 3 to 4 years and saying how do we keep the county solvent, and do we need to do everything we're doing, and how do we deal with the dilemma? And the last thing I'd say is we're not alone. Washington County's had some substantial cutbacks. Curry County on the south coast as well, they had a levy before their voters. It failed, and they had to lay off a couple of dozen people, including people from the sheriff's office, which nobody thinks is a really good idea, but they were faced with the same dilemma. You can't spend money you don't have, and governments don't issue checks that don't clear the bank. So thank you for the opportunity to update people on that.
You're welcome. Thank you, and thank you for leading us through the process. It's really useful and helpful. Thank you. Additionally, as Commissioner Olson mentioned, next week is Fair Week, and often in Tillamook County, everything shuts down for Fair Week because everyone is at the fair, including us. All of the commissioners will be working through the fair, so there's no board meeting or board briefing scheduled next Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, as everyone will be at the fair, so we hope to see you there. This meeting is adjourned at 10:41 a.m. Thank you.
Talking about Dr. B, I mean, he's actually been here longer than I have. And of all of those deaths that have taken place, that whole time right there, one time when, council had to get involved because of some sort of ledge snafu. It's incredible.
He is amazing.
Yeah, and the one that was involved a death in Fort Sands Beach, a surfer.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. B's phone goes off and he heads off to Short Sand Beach, to take care of that stuff. And when I'm talking with him, his phone goes off and he's off somewhere, east why this person died, he likes, I mean, not likes, but he's exceptional at dealing with the loved ones
Yes.
who are around.